Jojo Gang, was geht ab? Jonas hier am Start für euch. Heute mal ein ganz anderes Video hier auf dem Kanal. Und zwar ein quasi ungeschnittenes Interview mit Jim Latrache. Vielleicht sagt der Dude einigen von euch was. Er war gemeinsam mit Ulrich Larsen undercover in Nordkorea. Jim hat sich dabei als Mr. James ausgegeben, ein Waffenhändler, der Deals mit dem Regime machen will. Zu der ganzen Story haben wir vor einiger Zeit ein Video auf Simply gemacht. Normalerweise laden wir solche Interviews exklusiv bei unserem Patreon hoch. Wenn ihr uns da unterstützen wollt, kriegt ihr für 8 € im Monat exklusiven Zugang zu unserem Discord-Server, digitale Wallpaper, eure Namen in der Videobeschreibung bei Simplys und eben ungeschnittene Gespräche mit spannenden Persönlichkeiten aus unseren Recherchen. Jims Lebensgeschichte ist absolut irre. Er hatte eine ziemlich schwere Kindheit, hat lange gedealt und war in der Französischen Fremdenlegion. Das Interview ist auf Englisch. Lehnt euch zurück, er hat viel zu erzählen. Wir haben euch das Interview in Kapitel eingeteilt. In den nächsten Tagen kommt dann das nächste reguläre 2BG.
So we want to put them methamphetamine inside planes and fly it over Tel Aviv and drop it down to kill the morale of the youth. And he was like, oh, I love it, I love it. So,
two, four, guts. What kind of things that you have? When I find out, don't expect me to stop. I'll come for the please that you stack.
Where did you grow up?
I'm not born with poor parents or alcoholic parents, but I have ADHD. So back in the early 80s, you were rather as everybody else, or you were a trouble kid. You didn't have that terms. So it was not because I was this kind of kid who fought in school or anything like that. It was more like, lack of concentration, interrupting classes. And in the age of 12, my ground school teacher convinced my mom it would be in everybody's best interest if I was moved to a boarding school.
And how was that, a boarding school in Denmark in the 80s? How we have to imagine that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit difficult for me because I have nothing to compare it with. But this school was only boys. And you had like 3 different classes, and you only have 6 kids in each classes with 2 or 3 teachers. So you had 6 students in one class and 3 teachers. And that's the way this was built. Was basically, if kids were thrown out of schools, this was where they found out where else to put them, because you couldn't stay that for so long. So it was like a transfer station.
I'm sorry, and where did they put you afterwards?
They put me in a foster home, or what you call it, a school for orphanages.
And how did that happen? Because you still had parents at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was, this orphanage home was, you had kids who were there and stayed there 24 hours a day. And then you had me who stayed there in the daytime, but I was allowed to come home and sleep. But it was only like, at that time, it was not much time I had doing study. It was more like you were sitting down, talking about problems and stuff like that. They were very much into why you're here, what have you done, and stuff like that. And I found out it didn't help me much saying, oh, I cannot just shut up and have lack of concentration. You have to give them something more so they would leave you alone. So very quick, I started to say, oh yeah, I have high temper, lack of concentration, I'm angry, I'm difficult to socialize with other kids. And it was like, as more as you gave those people, the more they left you alone. But again, if you keep on telling yourself you're trouble kids, you start to kind of believe in that shit. I was there for 1.5 years. And it was just by luck I was transferred, because every time I was thrown to the headmaster's office, and I spent a lot of time there. I found out I had the time to study in the other kids' files. Uh, and at that time, I found out that somebody was moved into a foster home. And I thought, okay, because I wanted to do everything to get out of that place, because it was not a nice place to be. You have to think about, this was an era where, 10 years prior, it was illegal to hit children. But in those places, it was like a gray area. So that still happened. And you have to think about, most of the people that are there are from not strong homes. So who's going to believe a lone mother on welfare or anything? Because they say, why are you going there? He was a troublemaker in school. Of course he will make trouble. And if you are a guardian, this kind of place, and if you get attacked by a kid, of course you strike back. So you never had any kind of cases against those places. So lot of bad things happened while I was there. So I really wanted to get out of it. So I saw this as a way out. And at one of those meetings where you're sitting and saying, oh, how do you feel it's going? And there I said, okay, I know everything about it is about progress. And I don't really feel I'm doing much progress here. And I think perhaps this could be a great option. And luckily for me, they bought into it. And even more luckily, the guy they found for me used to be a headmaster on a home even worse than that one. And he was very much against teachers and caretakers beating up kids. So he had a lot of struggles with them. And in the end, he said, fuck it, I make my own place. So he bought an old farm and we built it so he could have his own place. So I was actually the first kid he got. And I only stayed with him for 3 weeks, and then he put me back in normal schools. And I would say that even that I still had lack of concentration, in respect of him, I didn't want to let him down. So I really forced myself to shut up. So I was staying at that place for nearly 2 years.
Oh, wow. And then during that time, did you have friends or were you isolated? What was your situation about?
No, I had friends, but the thing was, this was really out in the countryside. He was a really good man, and a lot of the philosophy I even live by today is grounded by him. He was the first adult I've ever been with who never yelled at me. He was really cool, but it was the area I was living in was really too boring for me. So I wanted to go back to my hometown.
All right. And then in your hometown, did you graduate high school there and then moved out, or what happened next?
No. Because due to my ADHD, it was really hard for me to concentrate in class. And I knew to be able to go back, I had to come up with a plan. And this is one of the many times in my life that I just took a decision without looking into what it was. So I found in Denmark you can take something called masterclass in being a baker. You start. It means that you just start working for a baker, then you work there for 6 or 7 months, then you go a little bit to school, then you come back and work. And I knew that there was a lot of bakers needing students, so I knew it was quite easy to get. I thought that could be basically a ticket back. But if you have ADHD and working in a bakery where you're standing making bread, at the same time you have an oven with five or six different things that have to come out on different times, and you work all nights, even in the weekend when your friends are out partying. So I quite quick understood that this was not for me. Yeah, so I continued until I was 18, and there I could decide myself. But now I had one problem. Now I couldn't break the contract, because you sign a contract for 3.5 years and you can only cut it up the first 6 months. So I made a lot of mistakes, but I just turned up the volume of my mistakes. And one day the guy I work for, he came to me and said, listen, I don't think this is the job for you. Why don't we agree we should stop this contract? And I was like, no, how can you say something like that? This is my dream job. Please give me another chance. And I continue really many, many fuck ups. And then one day he came and said, okay, how much do you want to stop working here? I said, I don't know. 3 months salary and 15,000 Danish kroner. And that was the end of me being a baker.
Not bad, not bad. All right. And then after your sort of sabotaged baker career, what was next for you? Did you join the French Legion? Was that?
No. I started being a phone salesperson. I moved into Copenhagen because I grew up 60 kilometers outside Copenhagen. So I moved to Copenhagen, became a phone dealer, and then I got another job working for Eurosport, selling something as crazy as text television commercial. And while I was working there, I saw a documentary about the French Foreign Legion. The thing is, while I was a child, my mom was very, very overprotected. So I had a lot of fears. I had fears of dog. I had fears of roller coaster, a lot of things. Fears of the older boys and stuff like that. And the worst thing you can have in life is being controlled by your fear. So I thought, okay, this could be good. You go to a place, you sign a contract, and no matter how fucked up it is, you don't have a chance to run away from it. So I thought, okay, this could be good. In like one sitting, you have to face all your fear, and you have. You have to. I know this sounds stupid, but I was 19 years at the time, and at that time, it made really, really good sense. And one day I just drove by an information office and say, okay, where is the recruitment for the French Foreign Legion? And that's how I started.
And for how long were you with the Legion?
I was there for 1.5 years. What I did learn was that to go beyond your breaking point, find out that this is how much it hurts, and even that you are able to push yourself to that stage, and that have helped me in many, many ways. Also, what you get trained in is that train your stress, your level of stress. So some of the thing you will get is that they will give you 5 tasks, but it's impossible to do all those 5 tasks in the time you have got. So that will learn you to prioritize. Okay, how can I do this? How can I do this? How can I do this? What's is most important? And you have to find out about this really quick in stressful situation. And that means it takes a lot for you to get stressed, because you're kind of trained, and this is the way you get trained if you are in a combat situation, because it is stressful, and it had really helped me a lot that even in really shitty situation, I have been able to like keep my pace on a certain level and not get too overwhelmed.
So you did your 1.5 years at the Legion with mixed success, no singing, no, still a fear of heights, but
Learn a lot about myself. Yeah.
Then for a pretty long part of your life, you dealt cocaine.
Yeah. I mean, when I came home from the Legion, I found a crowd of people, because when you have ADHD, you're not like anybody else, and and you see, when you grow up, you're like trained into, because people say it's very important that you blend in and you are like everybody else. But when you have ADHD, you're not like anybody else. And if you mirror yourself in other people, you will always see yourself as a failure, because you would not become like the people you try to look like. And then I jumped into a crowd when I came home from the Legion that was quite similar to me, but it was in the criminal environment. Later on, it makes so much sense to me, because why have those people become criminal? Because if a society keep pushing you out, then you do other things. So it was in this integration with those people, I starting my trade with cocaine.
Would you like to elaborate, or?
It was really mind fucking for me, because I'm coming from like a small town, 30,000 people. And when I was a kid, I mean, people you wanted to become like is like a doctor, engineer, lawyer, politician, stuff like that. People you always got told that these are the people who runs the country. These are the people who know how to behave. And suddenly you sit with those people in their society and see them do a lot of cocaine. So because a lot of people say, can you not see what you did was wrong? I say, yeah, I can do that now. But at that time, it was a bit difficult for me, because it was like all the people you have heard that you should look up to, they're doing this thing. Then it's like kind of difficult to see what you do is wrong. Because you have to think about the one who became my clients. I never sold to people who free bases. I never went to a single mom who had to give me her last money so she couldn't feed her kid to get cocaine. I was out that a guy, he called me up and said, I just made a meal. Come by, I want to celebrate. So you can see, I saw this as a product of a success. It was just like, how can you say, illegal champagne. And you can see even that if everybody is doing it, is everybody, even the cops, there was even cops buying it from me. So even the guy fighting it, the politician who takes the law about it, the people you look up about it do it, then it's just like,
How did you ultimately get caught? Because you did it for quite some time, 8 years, right? What was your downfall?
For many years, this was just like a big party for me. Because, I mean, as I said, I'm coming from this small town, and suddenly I'm partying with people you just read about in the magazine. You are in big mansion, and everything was crazy. At one point, I had to have a rain check, because you cannot party for every day for the rest of your life. And I saw that the cocaine business was a lucrative business. There was good money to be made if you took it serious. And at that time, I bought it from people in Denmark. So if you have a guy, let's say he imports 10 or 20 kilos, then he sell 1 kilo, 1 kilo, 1 kilo, they say 100, 100, 100, 10, 10, 10, 10. And if just one of those guys get caught, technically, they would be able to bring it whole down. So I said, okay, what about if I bring it into the country myself? And what about if I, instead of start selling it to people who could sell it, just bring it into the country myself and just sell it to the end user? And if I'm making sure that the end user is not people that are the usual suspect, because lawyers, politicians are not on surveillance. So you can have a business. So the only dangerous part in your business is when you get into the country. But you don't have this whole creating thing. You're not at techno parties dealing. The places you go is an area where cop doesn't look for stuff like that. So the reason why I actually got caught was that a lot of years later, my business was really going well, and my connection outside of the country was suddenly caught. I was told it had nothing to do with me, so it was not because I was paranoid about that, but my own spends of money and my own lifestyle. Let's say I was not willing to go down on lifestyle for a period of time, which I should have done, and go down and found a new contact who could bring it into me. So instead, at that time, I knew somebody here on the highest level who took it in, and I said, yeah. Because I knew them well and I bought directly for them. I had a lot of excuses for me to explain this, but that was actually why, because they were under surveillance by the police. And 3 months later, I was caught. Actually, I was on my way home from Taiwan, and I was arrested at Copenhagen airport.
All right. And then you went to prison for 8 years?
No, I got a sentence on 5.5 years. And I went to prison for 2 years and 8 months. And a lot of people say, did that make you stop? I said, no. I continued being a dealer while I was in prison. My people still work for me outside. And you have to put in this, and this is something I really work on today. I'm working on to understand how you can change people for being criminal and not to be criminal, and how to change the way we punish people in prison. Because if people have been punished their whole life, the word punishment as we know it doesn't apply to people who have been criminal. Even that I had a sentence on 5.5 years, I was not scared away. And second of all, this was the first thing in my life I was really good at. So I was like, what the hell should I do else? So I continued, and in the end of my sentence, I met my wife, the one I have now. And I have to tell you, it's not a good pickup line to say, first you have to say, I'm in prison, and then say, and you know what, I'm still criminal. So what I said was, I could not, I was in prison, that I could not lie out of. But what I said was, I am a key account manager, which is not 100% a lie. But I said that I was in prison because I helped a friend, and I knew this was a stupid idea, but what could I do? And that would never happen again. And she bought that one, and her family bought that one. And I was released from prison in the 21st November 2008. And the 1st December 2008, my wife and I, we went to India and we got married on a private beach, funny enough, called Kola Beach.
That's good. That's good.
And we came back. She got pregnant. And 8 months after my release, I was caught again. I was pretty sure she was going to leave me, but and even her family had said, if you stay with him, and I would have said the same. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, who would bet on a guy 37 years old, have been married before, have a child from that, have no education, and is on his way to serve his second drug case? But she said, no, I love you and I believe you can transfer, so I would wait for you. But you have to promise me two things. You have to promise me you I'll stop being a criminal, and you have to take education. I said, I mean, it's no problem. I can stop being a criminal, no problem. But the education part, not so good. And she said, no, but we have to find out how to solve that problem. So we found out that one of my biggest problem was that I was dyslexic. But we also found out I have a good memory. So every time I saw a word I didn't know, I hadn't seen before, I ask people and then they tell me what the word is. I look at the word, repeat it 16 times, and then I can remember it. So this is how I read. And I was in custom. That's before you get your sentence. It's they called you and then they set you waiting for them to take up your case. And I was waiting for 1.5 years. I was in isolation for 2 months, and then I was in something called B&B. That means that no communication with the outside world. I was only allowed to see my wife 1 hour a week in a 6 square meter room with a cop inside the room with us. And no phone calls. So all communication was by writing. So I was writing her letters with a lot of mistakes. She also wrote me back. And she also sent my old letters with notice of my misspellings and the grammar and stuff like that. And then she said, okay, you have to start reading some books. And when I was a kid, I heard, you remember, you know Narnia? The Lion and the Witch? Yeah. I heard that so many times when I was a kid. You know, when you have heard a book many times and before you were really able to be good reading, then it's easier for you to pick it up. So I started with that book. Then I read more children's book. Then it became like more sci-fi books. And when I got my sentence, my wife, she said, okay, you're ready to take your high school. And there I got like almost pro-traumatic stress because I had flashbacks about school. And my wife said, but listen, you're not entering a classroom. You're doing it from your own cell, in your own pace. Just chill. I'm pretty sure you can do it. So I started, and I went to the exam, and I got the best grades. So I was accepted to study psychology at Copenhagen University, which was one of the most difficult to get into at the time. And I was really proud of myself, not about the grades, but because I had proven to myself that I was able to do something else than being a criminal. And this is, I mean, you have to think about, this was in the age of 41.
Yeah, it's a big achievement to turn your life around like that. It's very impressive.
While I was studying psychology, one of the guys, there had been a lot of reporters because I had a high profile case. So a lot of reporters wanted to do a story, but the story they wanted was what you can call sensation journalistic, like how much money, which celebrities did you sell to? And I was like, I'm not interested in that. If I want to make a story, it should be a story because I could tell a whole story about who my client was. And what can that do? It can destroy a lot of life, but it would not change the world. I thought what could be the most important thing is like telling why does people become criminal and what does it take for them to stop being a criminal. So a guy I studied psychology with, his wife worked at the biggest network in Denmark, radio. And he said, she want to do a show with you, and you are allowed to make it as you want, and you have editing rights on it. So we did that show, and it became a love story between me and my wife. I mean, how she supported me and believing me. And it's all about, if you want somebody to change, it's about confidence and believing people. And I'm very proud of it. And in September 2015, we won the award show for Best Feature of the Year. And at that award show, I met Mads Brügger. I had seen his movie. He did The Ambassador, and he did The Red Chapel. And we had a chat, and I said, I really love what you have done. And he invited me. At that time, he was the editor on a big radio station, and he invited me there for coffee, and we started hanging out. And then one night in 2016, around May, he calls me up and says, I'm working on something. I've been working on it for 7 years. I really want you to, I think you can lift it. I say, what is it? He said, have you ever heard about the Danish North Korean Friendship Association? I said, what? Oh, come on. That is so stupid. Nothing exists like that. But it happened. It was. And then he told me about Ulrik, who had been undercover. I mean, it was a conversation, only 10 minutes. He said he had been undercover there because he believes that there's something a little bit not right going on there, and we want to prove it. And he have also been in North Korea, and he met Alejandro Caudebena, that's president for the Friendship Association. And this guy have since 2013 kept on asking Ulrik if he can find people that is willing to invest in North Korea. So this is where I want to use you. I want you to play an oil billionaire who doesn't like American and want to support any kind of enemy. And at that time, I have to be honest, I was starting to get tired of studying psychology, and I needed a break. So I said, yeah, fuck it, let's do it.
That's a very hilarious reason. Oh, lovely. And then the crazy shit starts, right?
Yeah, I mean, people have to understand. When I went to Oslo, we didn't know, because Ulrik hadn't been told either what is going on while you're up there. So he could have said, we have developed a Nintendo. Yes, that would be illegal to find money for, but it would not be a story. But then he just pulls out, and I mean, I was like, fucking hell. I mean, you know what white label is? He said they made white label missiles for Iran. And it's just like, and the Chinese look the other way, okay. And oh my fucking God. And in my mind, this could have been the end of the movie. And I didn't hear much. I mean, Mads, of course, he said he was really happy of what we have achieved in Oslo. And I didn't hear a lot from them. I thought, okay, that's it. And then by coincidence, I took a walk in downtown, and I met Mads. So, oh, it's funny. I have the producer Pete on the phone. We have been talking about, couldn't it be funny if you meet Alejandro again and say you actually have people that's interested in the weapons? And I'm like, yeah, fuck it. So we went to Madrid, and so I said, I have a guy in Yemen who's quite interested in those weapons. And you remember he said he also could provide methamphetamine. And while I was in prison, I watched History Channel, and I remember this really, really interesting program about Adolf Hitler. Hitler had this idea of printing false pound, British pound, put them in a plane and fly them over the UK and dump them down to break the British economy. And I thought that was hilarious. I mean, the mission failed, but nevertheless, good idea. So I think perhaps I can use that story. So while I was sitting with us, I had this guy in Yemen. He's quite interested in the weapon. And I have some other guys in Yemen. They're very interested in the methamphetamine. So we want to put the methamphetamine inside planes and fly it over Tel Aviv and drop it down to kill the morale of the youth. And he was like, oh, I love it. I love it. So, so the next step was to go to North Korea and meet the intelligence service down there. And a lot of people have been asking is like, weren't you afraid of scare or anything like that? And I would say no. And the reason why I say no is because before I was sitting down and do some simple math. First of all, Ulrich, I mean, think about you have a company, you have a guy who have worked for you 7 years in that company, who's your confidence, who have actually helped your company growth. And at one point, you want your company to even grow bigger. You go to the bank won't lend you money. And then you say to him, do you know anybody who can support us? And if he say, yes, I have something I complete trust, would you start asking stupid questions? Of course not. You would be so happy that you have an investor, especially when this investor tell you he will minimum invest 50 million euro. 50 million euro! That's fucking lot of money. And while I was in North Korea, I was treated like a king. It was incredible. I mean, it was so blowing out. I mean, I remember one night, I mean, I was drinking with them a lot. And this is why my criminal record comes, because I'm not afraid, because normally people, when they drink, and this is why in Asian culture, you drink with people, because what happens when people drink, they start talking a little bit too much. But when you have been 15 years in the criminal environment and drink, doing drugs, and you're still educated in shutting up. So I was not nervous about that. And I grew up in a very left-wing family. So I have a lot of stories about Chile and Allende and Pinochet. So as more as we drank, they talk about all the bad things American did. Sake! So it was not a difficult task. And one night we were sitting and drinking, and Kang, he suddenly takes up his mobile phone and says, oh, Mr. James, you have to look here. The great leader had made a water park, $100 million. Tomorrow we're going to see it. It's like, what do you mean we're going to see it? Because one thing I have to tell you, I love water parks. So I was like, I'm not going to see it. I want to try it. It's like, what? I want to try it. You cannot take me to you say $100 million. I want to try it. I'm not sure. Find out. Otherwise, I don't want to go. So then he came back and said, okay, you can try. So the day after, we were going there. And Ulrich, I think he thought perhaps it was a little bit embarrassing. So he just went out to get shaved. And he was with Kang, and Kang was the one who spoke good English. So I was with Mr. Ri. And when we went down to the dressing room, and still the quality was like Germany, Denmark, Dubai quality. It was really, really state of the art. Then I started to think, I mean, all the time we've been in North Korea, we had those agents, no matter where we went, they were with us. I said, it could be fun, just for 1 minute, perhaps two, to experience North Korea on your own. And we're like, okay, how can I provide that? And then I think, okay, we both have to get undressed down there. So if I can get undressed before him, then I can go into the water park alone. So when we start to get undressed, I start asking him random questions. So Mr. Ri, tell me, just between me and you, where does the great leader lives? And he said, I don't know, I cannot tell you. I said, come on. And while he was like, he tried to find the words. I just taken off my clothes, and I came on with stupid questions. And in the end, he was still fully dressed, and I was butt naked, and said, okay, listen, Mr. Ri, we take it inside. So I just went into the shower, jumped into the park. And at that time, I had a beer down there. I'm tattooed all over my body. And the place was packed. It was a Sunday. And you should have seen it. it was, I mean, must have been how the first black men in Europe have felt, because people were stunned. It's like, what the fuck is this guy doing here? And when you came out, there was like a long pool, and next there was like sunbed. So I was just like walking down, hello man, walking down, took a swim. It was hilarious. It was like really, really fun.
Christ, yeah, that's the craziest shit ever. Oh wow.
But we had still not. I mean, I went to the opera. I got sushi. I mean, we did a lot of fun things, but we haven't seen anything even close to what Alejandro promised us. So I think we had like 2 days left, and I'm like, because I knew I could not convince the production company to send me to North Korea. The risk was too high. So I knew if we should have something home, that was it. So I said to Kang, listen, Kang, I really, really enjoyed the time I have been here. You're showing me the best time of my life. But I have to tell you, it cost me 200,000 euros to be here. It's like, wow, why? And it's because when people have to understand, when you fly into North Korea, it's like you fly into a black hole. Your mobile phone doesn't work, your Wi-Fi, nothing. And he knows that as well. So I said, but listen, when I'm traveling, I will have meetings with you, but when I don't have meetings with you, I will be working. I will be working on my phone. For 1 week, I haven't been able to work with my client. And those 200,000 euros was just a number I grabbed, but it sounded good. And he believed it. So I said, this is what's going to happen. I was promised you had some things you want to sell me. If you don't, it's fine enough. We're still friends, and I had a good holiday, but just for you to know, I'm not coming back. I don't have the time. So if you have something to show me, it should be now. So the next day, they say, come on. And then they took us into the van, and we start driving outside the city. And I'm like, I know I'm in control when I'm drinking, but had I fucked up in any kind of way, the thought starting, because you go into an area that's not very comfortable, and suddenly you stop in front of a building that looks something that should have been torn down many years ago, and they ask you to go down in a basement. And I'm like, okay. It's not time to be scared, because that cannot help you. Try to just think clear for 1 second. I'm like, okay, if they have found out or have an idea who we are, they will not kill us, because they want to find out what we know. So that will give me a window. And if I was innocent, what would my reaction? What would be Mr. James' reaction? And Mr. James' reaction would be really, really pissed off and insulted. So I was starting to think about all the times my wife have done something bad just to find out the anger. So I was like prepared to the world biggest race attack. And then I opened the door, and it was a really nice restaurant. I found out later on, and this is quite interesting, that even though the North Koreans are paranoid of people outside, they're actually as paranoid of their own people. So this fraction we meet down, they brought us out there to make sure nobody else was listening into what we talked about. And this is because, and what people have to understand, in North Korea, you don't decide where to live. You are appointed where to live. So Pyongyang is like the center for the elite. And think about, if you're the one who give the great leader, a wealthy person that's interested in invest minimum 50 million euro, how much that can have an impact on your life. So you don't want to share that. So the first contract I made with them, it said that I was a weapon agent for them, but it also said that all future agreement had to go by this group of people we were sitting there. That was actually, they were more worried about that part in that we put some really obvious word into the contract that normal people wouldn't put in. They say, can we put methamphetamine in here? I say, yeah, fuck it. What about custom? I said, custom doesn't look through letters. Custom looks for drugs. It's important we put it all in. Just put it all in.
Oh, wow.
So if we should end with this, because this is crazy on a whole other level. We go home, and again, you have an idea that this could be the movie, but now we have it's just like you always have a little new bit, because it's like, okay, so you have talked about building a weapon factory in a third country. What country would they come up with if you say yes? So first they came up with Namibia, and I was starting looking on lands, starting talking to landowner. There was a Swedish billionaire who had a really nice piece of land down there with your own airplane, your own airport on the land. They had like all kind of gazelles, and it was really beautiful and really good for that purpose. But then the government in Namibia, due to the sanction, was afraid. And then they came out with Uganda. And I started looking at property. And then I found out, just by coincidence, I was like, property, Uganda, islands. I went in there and like, fuck yes. I saw a picture. I mean, what is more fucking James Bond than having your own island with a weapon factory? So I called the producer and say, how about this? And he said, let's go for it. And Mads loved it. So I started negotiate. And as I said, I was stationed in Djibouti in Africa for 4 months while I was in the Legion. So I know a little bit about the culture and things going on. So I said to the landowner, this piece of land costs $5.4 million. And I said to the landowner, okay, it all seems very good, but I have to be honest with you. We would not buy the land if we don't have a silent partner for the government. And they say, okay, no problem. And see, this is even more crazy. When I sit down, I mean, most of the footage you see from Uganda is not with hidden cameras. Because I said to them, okay, listen, guys, I'm in a bit hurry. I don't want to make any mistakes. We want to close this deal as fast as we can. This is why I have a cameraman with me, because then we just show it all to the board, then we can close it, and then we're on the wall and say, yeah, sure. And I said to them, okay, I didn't tell them about the weapon factory, but if this doesn't seem a little dodgy when a person say, I want to buy an island, I cannot tell you what's on the island or what I'm going to use it for, but I want 100% privacy, and I want to be allowed to land Boeing 747 and take them off without custom looking into the plane. That's exactly how I said it. And they say, yeah, no problem. We can actually provide you with custom sailing around the island, protecting your island for any interference. I'm like, give me an amen.
That's just insane. That's so crazy. It also makes you wonder, for every fake James Bond deal, how many real James Bond deals are there that they made,
And see, this is the thing that I really thought was kind of crazy, is that how easy this was for me. I mean, this negotiating of the island was done by email. I think, because you would think this would have taken years and years, I think I spent less than 1 month. Less than 1 month of communication by emails.
That's just insane. That's unbelievable. It's crazy. Wow. And maybe just to wrap it up a bit clean, right? I think people also should watch the documentary if they want the full story of all the other crazy things that you and Ulrich did. But maybe to look at your life after the documentary. So the mall dropped, you dunked on North Korea. how did your life change after? Do you sometimes look over your shoulder and you're like afraid or something? Or
No. I mean, I'm not afraid, and I decided not to be afraid because I'm like, people say, do you want protection? And I'm like, first of all, it's like, if a government wants you dead, how the fuck can you protect yourself? Then you have to live a life like Salman Rushdie, and I don't want to do that. That's one thing. The other thing is that I think the North Korean do what I think is the smartest move, because if they come after me, they actually prove that I'm right. So I think what they're doing is saying this is propaganda. This is entire lie, and just let it fly. That seems more like a cultural thing they would do. Because if they react on it, and if what I'm telling is right, and what you see on the film is right, that makes them look very stupid. So I think they will do the first thing. Deny. But I mean, while I did the movie, I also made a chain of massage and physiotherapist clinics. I put my wife in as CEO for that. I did a book. It came out the 5th of November. It had also come out in Poland, and we're working on it. Comes out in Germany and the UK and so on and so forth. I'm doing a stand-up show, if you will, doing lectures about my life and this exciting trip. And I have done different podcasts in Denmark and outside Denmark. And right now I'm playing in my first Danish television crime series called DNA. And the funny part, I see, this is the thing, I don't know if it's a compliment or it's an insult, because I met the guy who made the script. I met him on the screen and said, Jim, I have the perfect role for you. I said, oh, great. I have the producer call you. The producer called me and said, do you have an agent? I said, nah, but you can talk to my lawyer. And then my lawyer called and said, everything is in place. All the contract is signed. I said, but am I not going to a casting? No. It's all good. You know what I'm going to play? I'm going to play pimp. So they think I'm so much a pimp, I don't need to go to a casting. So so this is why I say I'm not sure if this is an insult or a compliment. But I start shooting in the beginning of this week.
That's just spectacular. I think all that's left to say is thank you so much for sharing your life story up until now.
Yeah, and I mean, if people have questions they sit with, they can find me on my Instagram. I'm more keen to answer any kind of questions that people may have.
Amazing. We're going to link that down below. Thank you so much for taking the time.
So every time I met with the North Korean, after we became friends, first time in Uganda, this is what they had for me. And I want to show you. It always came in a bag like this. And in this, I'll show you, beautiful box. And when you open the box, it looks like this. And inside, you have these very, very elegant boxes. So this is ginseng tea. And as they say to me, this is gift for you that will make wife very happy. So they believe that you are better in bed when you drink ginseng tea. So every time I met with them, now I have given most of them in funny Christmas gift and stuff like that. But after 4 years, I had 10 boxes of those because it was every time I met with them. I sometimes got 2 or 3 bags, and I had to say to them, "Oh yeah, my wife is very, very happy after I met you guys."
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Für alle, die noch da sind, danke fürs Zuschauen bzw. Anhören. Wenn euch solche Interviews gefallen, unterstützt uns doch gerne bei Patreon und erhaltet Zugang. Schaut nach links und rechts, bevor ihr in ein Flugzeug nach Nordkorea steigt, und feiert gut. Case closed.
I'm as green as I wanna be, cruising through the late night shifts on a jet ski, blowing smoke out my head, it's fine. I don't even know the time, I don't really know the feel. She don't even know what's up, told her tell me how you really feel, but she don't really give a damn. Still tell me take a hand, why we even turning up, you remember